Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode on Laid Back the Atorozinga podcast. And our topic for this week is awareness driven lifestyle. So, today we'll be talking to Dr. Jana Outerbridge, who is a counseling psychologist and runs Mevera Wellness that targets young girls and women to provide them with mental health counseling, healing, empowerment, and development. Currently, Jana is helping teams and organizations to develop their psychological health and safety within the workplace. Hello, Jana. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm
Yeah,
excited to be here.
so this is your second time on the show now.
It is my second time, so thank you for having me back.
So, but how does it feel to be back?
It feels good. I think I've evolved so much since our first recording.
Yeah.
And as you said, I'm working on psychological health and safety in the workplace, which is a pivot for me. So I'm excited to talk about that some more.
Okay. So since you've evolved over the past, I think the last episode of recording with you was like 2 or 3 years ago. So, what are your expectations for today then?
What are my expectations? Wow, pressure's on. Well, I'm hoping that I can share a little bit more about psychological health and safety and what that looks like, because oftentimes we're talking about mental health, but we're not really considering our psychological health and safety and actually the sort of differences there. So I'm hoping that I get to share that with your audience and also introduce them a little bit to awareness driven lifestyle, which you mentioned a bit earlier. So that's what I'm looking forward to doing today.
Okay. So, um, you've mentioned it sounds so passionate about it anyway. So you've mentioned awareness driven lifestyle, but can we actually explain to the audience like what do we mean by that to start with?
Okay, so awareness driven lifestyle. I'll give you a little bit of a story first and then I'll explain what it means. So, I am a psychologist and I do one to one work with a number of different people. And I was finding that a lot of people were coming and they were talking about work life balance, but they were finding it really challenging to achieve. And I remember one day being in a session and just saying, well, let's not do that. Let's not work on work life balance. And it just stopped for a minute. Like, I think we paused in the session and I realized this was not serving my clients well. It was becoming an impossible task. And so I went back to the drawing board and did some reflecting. And over this last year, I've been really working on an awareness driven lifestyle. So if anyone knows me, I think the core of everything should be self awareness. And we should be constantly spending time to get to know ourselves, engaging in new activities so we can have the unknown become known, right?
Yeah.
So what I decided was the core of everything should be awareness. And then what we have to do is almost considering bubbles, right? So imagine like a big circle in the middle that says awareness. And around that, maybe we have other bubbles that we have in our lives. So that might be work, that might be our finances, that may be exercise, it may be our family and other activities that we have to do, which is all the things we term as life, right? And it's almost imagining those bubbles taking form around awareness at the core. So if we know that we have to work really late one evening, right, then that bubble's a bit bigger because it requires more of our time. Alternatively, we may have a smaller bubble that may be for friends because that day or that week, we may not really be able to spend time with our friends. We may send them a message or something like that. And I think what happens is if we decide what are those sort of bubbles around our awareness at the core that need us the most, then it gives us permission to reduce any guilt that may be around us not having this perfectly balanced life. And so I started to move with an awareness driven lifestyle to help the people that I was working with to not feel like they were getting it wrong because everything wasn't so balanced, but allowing us to really go with the ebbs and flows of what life really has to offer, the ever changing life circumstances that come up, right? Our health may change, which means that we may not be in a position to do certain activities. So that may mean that we spend more time, that bubble is a bit bigger, focusing on our health and our well-being, and not having to say, well, I feel so bad, I'm not doing everything else in my life. This is what the priority is. I recognize that all these other areas still matter, but today my health needs me, which means that my bubble for work may mean that I do finish my day within the 8 hours and I'm not working late that night because it's not busy season and I know I have to focus on my health, right? So that's when I started to say, let's focus on awareness driven lifestyle to reduce any of, the frustrations that people were feeling. Let them feel safe in no 2 days are alike, and it's okay. You're not dismissing the other things that are important. You're focusing on what requires priority today. And that's the direction that I'm moving in. I hope that makes sense on an awareness driven lifestyle.
So if I'm getting this correct, so the awareness driven lifestyle is all about setting our priorities right.
Based on the circumstances of that moment.
Yeah.
That's the key there, right? It's based on the circumstances of that moment, right? Because what our capacity may have been, 1 month ago, it may look different
Yeah.
today because life isn't the same. And so it gives people a little bit more permission to say, what's realistic today? Not what was realistic a month ago or a year ago. It's not the same. So you
Yeah.
have to be aware of your needs at the core and then move accordingly as time goes on.
Okay. So but um so this is what I'm thinking now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
So for you to be able to do that, that means you have to embrace authenticity. All right.
mm-hmm,
So because for you, you have to be aware of your needs, what you, because like you say, life is fleeting. It depends on what from year, even day to day, or month to month, or year to year, things change. So you have to embrace
yes.
authenticity to be the best version of yourself, to know what you really want and what you really need. But
Mm-hmm,
however, a lot of people find it scary being authentic. You know that, and because they know it can lead to a lot of changes, and it could come with a lot of them losing friends, family members, rejection. How can they deal with that? Because if they're trying to embrace this authenticity and self awareness driven lifestyle, it could lead to different things that they are not ready for.
mm. Well, so that's an interesting point that you bring up. I guess what I'm hearing you say is that for some people, if they embrace this, that may mean they spend less time with certain people in their life, certain friends, certain
Yeah,
family. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
yeah, because if you mention your clients, most of them were talking about work life balance. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
depending on how they actually look at it this way, I then realize, okay, I need to put more focus. I need to put more focus on on work right now. I need to put more focus on life, friends, family right now. By doing that, because they were not used to that initially, see what I mean? Because they're trying to find a balance to make sure they satisfy their own needs as well. It could lead to some like changes that the other parties who've known them before are not used to, and it could cause
Mm-hmm.
like a little bit of rockers for them in their lives. How do you think they can handle that? Because not a lot of people can deal with that.
Okay, so a few things. One, we have to think about who are the people that are in our lives that do not want us to focus on our well-being, right? Like that's a really important question. And I think maybe what happens in some cases, we have to think about cultural differences and any other differences that people may be coming up with. But if people genuinely are supportive of us and they love us and they want the best for us, right? When we start to choose ourselves in ways that are meaningful, then we have to imagine that the people that want the best for us are in support of that, right?
Yeah,
And if they're not in support of that, then that gives us a really great indication on how do we want to move forward with these people. If they don't value that, we need to do other things in our lives that are important to us at this time, right? And so you talked about rejection. Well, yeah, rejection doesn't feel good. No one wants to be rejected. However, I would ask that person to sort of sit and think. If someone was in their shoes, what advice would they give to them? Would they tell them to, well, just choose everyone else? It's more important that you choose them.
yeah,
Or would they say to that person, you know what? you have this great opportunity to choose you. And if the people that say that they love you don't want you to live a life that serves you well, do you really need them? Right? Or is it okay to start to decide who may be some new people that you have in your life, right?
Yeah.
Now, that may not always be easy with family, of course.
Exactly. Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
however, however, family will also have to learn a new way of operating. No, that may not be their choice, right? Because they're used to taking advantage of you, or they're used to, well, this is just how we do things. And I'm not asking anyone within this awareness driven lifestyle to be disrespectful, to do any of those things. I'm asking them to stop and say, what do you want, need, and deserve? And how do we move forward? It
Yeah.
may mean I don't do dinner, every single weekend with a whole extended family because I need to do other things. And so maybe it's every other week now. Now, family may not like that, but also, what is the control that family has over really helping you to be your best self? What are you going to look like? Some of this may be having to break some of those cycles, especially when you know you're not trying to bring any harm, right? And in some cases people may say, oh wow, that's easier said than done. Well, is it really easier said than done when your well-being is at risk? And now, when we come to our mental health, we have to understand, right? This is connected to our physical health. So if you're not taking care of yourself, you're going to have gut problems, you have high blood pressure, you can have other sicknesses and illnesses, that diseases that start to come into your body if you're not living the quality of life that you deserve. And so being aware that all of these areas are important to you, because you get to decide what goes in those other bubbles, right? And maybe it's just that today one area has more focus, but tomorrow it's okay because most of my time is with family. And you get to choose that. You get to move. I love standing by the ocean. You get to move with those ebbs and flows as the water goes in and out based on your own individual needs.
Mhm.
So that's where
Yeah.
I am, and that's why I say, or awareness is key. I love that you talked about authenticity, and we always want to try to be as authentic as possible wherever we are, but that also takes some different shape and form depending on where we are as well.
Yeah.
People don't, maybe they may not like that, but our professional authenticity and our authenticity at home with our family, it just looks different. Doesn't mean that we're not bringing ourselves, but our professional authentic self, is maybe not going to come, you know, cussing or swearing, but maybe in our personal lives we do, right? So what is this authenticity? What is this sort of true self, um, as well?
Okay. Fine. So, but when we talk about awareness, actually, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are going to say you are so aware and you're living an awareness driven lifestyle, that means you know yourself. Like we talked about authenticity, that means you should
Mm-hmm.
be able to know your core values, your emotions, and purpose in life. So, how do you think um your clients, the people you talk to, and general audience now, how do you think they can be able to actually find and understand what their core values are, to actually understand what their purpose, because they need to understand this to actually say are really aware of what they're doing.
Okay, so I'm going to challenge that for a second,
Yeah.
because what I understood about myself a year ago is not what I understand about myself today. And a year ago, I believe that I was very self aware. But because of different life circumstances, I've learned new information. So my awareness is now at a new level, right? When we experience new things, we learn more about ourselves, right? So when we're engaging in new hobbies, we take on new roles, we have conversations with new people, and the range of other things that we do, we learn more about ourselves. So I don't, this is my opinion of this. Our awareness will continue to evolve. And so our awareness driven lifestyle will continue to look different as we choose to learn about ourselves. And the way that we allow the unknown to become known, so our unknown self, things we don't know about ourselves, to start to come into our awareness, our known self, is by trying new things, having new conversations, being around people that are living the lifestyles that we are hoping for or that we want to achieve. Same way you make money, right? You don't spend time, with people who aren't making money. You spend time with people who are making money. You read the books where the people who are making money and making business moves.
Yeah.
You don't just stay in the same areas, right?
Yeah.
And so you challenge yourself to learn more about you. I think journaling is a big deal. I stand by it. I think when you start getting your thoughts out and this aha moment start to come up for you, you're like, oh my, wow, I didn't even realize this was happening. The other thing is, who are your trusted people in your circle, right? If you ask them, hi, friend, what do you think about how I receive constructive feedback? What are your thoughts on my communication style? How do you think I show up in relationships or things like that? And if this is a trusted person who can be honest with you, they may say, hi, friend, I think you let people take advantage of you. You know, and you're like, wait a minute, do I? They're like, yes. And that's the reason why in your awareness driven lifestyle, your bubble is so big over here versus over what you really need to pour into yourself, right? So, are you prepared to get that feedback from people that you love and trust who can give you information? And I will just pivot that for a second, right? Are you prepared to receive that constructive feedback from your managers that may be saying, hi, I think you really can improve in this area. What can we do to help you to develop? If your first thought is, I'm doing just fine. Well, yeah, maybe you are, but maybe sometimes people can see things in you that you can't see in yourself, right? And this is where we have internal and external awareness, right? The internal awareness are all the things that we know about ourselves, but the external awareness is how other people are perceiving us in a relationship. And so they may say, I don't see you that way. You may see yourself that way. And you may think, oh, wow, this is my external awareness, how I'm showing up in the groups, how I'm showing up around family and friends and other people. I'm aware of that. I'm aware of how my presence based on different learning experiences that you've had.
Yeah.
You
Interesting.
know?
Okay.
Yeah.
So that means the way, but that's what I'm asking now. Like, but I understand that what you know about yourself today may change tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But don't our core values actually remain the same? For example, if you value honesty, I don't think it's going to change. You still value honesty and integrity. If you're the kind of person that does not value that and value maybe loyalty, you've always
Mm-hmm.
valued loyalty. Or do you think that changes as well?
Oh, this is such a tricky one for me. I do think our core values very much so probably remain. However, I think what becomes more important to us the order of what's important may change, right? So if we kind of had 10 values and we rank them 1 to 10, 10 being most important, 1 least important, you value all of them, but they may shift, right? I value transparency. For someone else they may not, and that's something that has come over life changing circumstances and experiences. So for me, I think maybe our values at the core, they will remain, but they can also take a different form. I even challenge this, and this goes against everything probably professional of personality tasks, because I know people would say personality stays the same, but I've seen some major changes based on how I see the world within personality tasks that I've taken from time when I first left for uni, and then years later I saw where I answered questions very differently because of how I saw the world and how I understood things. And a lot of that changes. So yeah, your values can stay things, but you're not good. You come wisdom, right? Wisdom comes with different experiences. I can't imagine that, you know, 25 years from now, I think exactly the same way I do today. I would find that hard to believe.
Yeah. Mm, okay.
Yeah.
But let's let me take you back to, you mentioned internal and external awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means curiosity is very important if we're going to live like an awareness driven lifestyle. Then, so
Yeah.
I am the type of person. I think you know that, but I ask a lot of questions. Even if I know the
Mm,
answer, I like asking. I'm always curious to know what the other person thinks, like to see how they reason. It's fun for me. I won't lie, but I notice a lot of people don't like asking questions. To be fair, they feel like maybe it makes them look like dumb or whatever. I don't know why. I don't know their own. I can't say I don't know what's on their mind, but I notice they're always reluctant to ask questions. So how
mm-hmm.
can one actually develop this curiosity to, because you need to ask questions to know what who you are internally and what people think of you externally as well.
Yes, you do love asking questions.
Yeah.
You know, there's a reason why we may not be people that ask questions, right? So we're all raised very differently. We all have our own caregiving system that has helped to shape our worldview. So from conception to now, our various experiences have helped to form who we are, right? So if we grew up in a household where everyone asks questions, we may just be more likely to ask questions because it was safe and comfortable to do so.
Yeah.
Or we may have grown up in a household that everyone asks so many questions and now that annoys you. And so you don't want to be that person because of how it made you feel, right? So the same type of situation can have a different outcome. And then the opposite, of course, someone, we didn't say anything, you do as I say, not as I do, and you don't ask questions. Now you're an adult who doesn't ask questions of other people, right? And it can be so many different things. So I think it's okay to hold space for it wherever you are on this journey. It's perfectly fine. Now, if you would like to give yourself an opportunity to become more curious about who you are, you can do that in really gentle ways. I think earlier I talked about the question of what advice would you give to your best friend. Maybe start to become that person to yourself with that very sort of solution focused questioning of, wow, what advice would I give to someone else that was in my shoes? What makes me not worthy of of my own advice? And just starting to become that friend to yourself, curious about who you are, and then maybe even curious about, why don't I ask questions? I really wanted to know, why didn't I ask? And then you could kind of work backwards of, man, I really remember that one time I asked a question and everyone laughed at me. They thought it was so silly.
Yeah.
Or I asked a question and I couldn't get my words out. I was so embarrassed. Or somebody said, that was such a stupid question. Why would you ask that? Of course, it's X, Y, and Z. And so now you don't feel really confident to ask questions. And you can walk around like the most confident person in the world, but that may be an area that's really uncomfortable for you. And so there's a gentleness around it. There's being able to kind of hold space for just where you are. I love compassion. I love doing like compassion work and helping people to form a really compassionate and gentle voice, and not being so harsh of like, it's okay, give yourself a little grace, you didn't ask last time, but maybe this time you can ask, right? You can make a behavior change and say, oh, I'm just going to try it out. I'm going to ask this one question. I'm committed to asking one question. And then before you know it, you're asking two or three questions and you're like really getting the hang of this, being curious thing and asking these questions. So those are some things I would say, you can try to start doing if you want to build in that area.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
But I understand that asking the questions can be like embarrassing and all. But if we are going to be aware of who we are and what people think of, but most importantly, like our strengths and weaknesses, because I feel like that's a huge part of awareness-driven lifestyle. If I'm correct, yeah. So
Understanding our strengths and weaknesses.
yeah, yeah.
So not on this. So let me
Okay,
make sure I'm clear.
okay.
So it's about, what does my life need, right? That's so strengths and weaknesses, yes. And I'm not a big weaknesses person. I like to say my areas that I like to improve in, my areas of improvement. Um, but it's really the awareness driven lifestyle is what needs me the most. Work, school, friends, family, you know, exercise, whatever it is, alone time. What do I need? And then deciding the capacity that you have for each of those areas of your life. That's what that is about. And that is really, it's offering permission to say, I'm thinking about all of these other areas, right? However, today priority is self. So I'm calling out sick.
Yeah.
And I'm taking that day to myself. And if anyone knows me, I love that for people. I think it's great. Good. You should be able to do that. Because you recognize you needed time to positively pour into your well-being for the day. Right? Or it's just you can take a vacation day if you don't want to call it sick. So that's really what it is. On understanding our strengths and weaknesses, yes, that is connected to our awareness, and how we show up in the world. But in this case, for the awareness driven lifestyle, it's really about permission to say, what can I do for myself today? However, yes, we do have to continue to learn about ourselves, which is very much so the awareness piece to help us to show up as our best self from day to day.
Okay. So that means in this context, the strength and weaknesses, they are not really the focus. So what about our emotions then?
Yes, our emotions are, that energy emotion is really, really, really important, because our emotions are connected to our behaviors, which are also connected to our thoughts, right? So, depending on us being able to kind of have that ability to name our emotions and understand what's happening, we start to choose behaviors that are either helpful or harmful, right? So if we are, let's say, what would we say? If we are, anxious or depressed or confused, that's going to be connected to behaviors that, maybe we choose to do certain things in that day that we wouldn't ordinarily need to focus on. Maybe we're practicing avoidance, right? And if we're avoiding things, that means our to-do list is building up, and then that's connected to our thoughts, which our thoughts are, I never get anything done. I can't complete this. It's going to take forever. And we can think about how that cycle may continue to present itself, right?
Yeah.
And so emotions definitely play a part in, I guess, everything that we do, right? So all of that, yes, 100% comes to the core of awareness. But I just kind of wanted to make sure I was clear on what the bubbles are about, but we do have to continue to learn ourselves so that we can, choose how to fill those bubbles of what needs to take priority within that day.
Okay. So now that we've talked about emotions, you mentioned anxious, depending on how we feel, would affect how what we think. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
how can because sometimes like you just mentioned, we are all read differently. So I think our understanding of emotions all differ as well. So how can people actually understand what they are thinking and what's driving their inner monologue? Like, because for you to live it, correct me I'm wrong, maybe in this context maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like if you're living a awareness driven lifestyle, you should be able to identify patterns in your life,
Mm-hmm.
because what you think, like you said, like what you think will affect how you show up in the world, which will actually affect what you do. So, and that may create like a, a certain pattern in your life, and you maybe because the person has not been able to reflect, the person will not be able to identify those patterns. So, how can they understand what they are thinking to understand that what they're actually thinking is affecting how they show up in the world and it's creating those patterns?
Okay. All right. So oftentimes I ask people, you know, are they finding that there are areas that they want to maybe improve in, right? Because people sometimes may say, well, my relationships are failing, right? That might be the thing, and they're trying to figure out why the relationships are failing. So maybe we start to say, okay, what are some of the things you're doing, actions, behaviors, within these relationships? Maybe we find out the behaviors are they're, going out with the wrong people, or they're working at the wrong companies. They're choosing behaviors within the to apply for jobs at companies that are not serving them well because it's not helpful, right? Or they're at work already and they're recognizing my coworkers don't like me. Okay, well, what are you doing? Right? That doesn't mean that. I always start with the person. What are you doing in these relationships? So they may be able to identify some behaviors. Well, I don't speak to people when I go in. I don't go to any of the functions at work. Um, you know, I never sit in the lunchroom and have lunch with colleagues. I never go to the socials. Well, okay, those are the behaviors you're choosing, which are connected to your thoughts. Maybe your thoughts are, my work friends are not my friends who I want to spend time with. I don't like these people,
Okay.
which is, something that may happen, which is connected to whatever their emotions may be. They may be, I don't know, frustrated or disappointed for whatever their reasons are, right? So I'm saying, being clear on the emotion, clear on the thoughts, clear on the behaviors, right? That's being really important. So I would say something like, all right, I get it. But you want to be able to improve your work relationships. And they're like, yeah, it's just not working. Like, they don't like me, or whatever the case may be. And so maybe we'll start with something like, okay, what evidence do you have that they don't like you? And maybe I'll work through that. They may say, well, no one says hello to me when I walk in. Well, you also don't say hello to them when they walk in. So where are we going with this, right? Or we try to learn, what are you doing when you're showing up in the space? And so maybe we'll start behaving differently. Maybe you'll start, next week greeting people when you walk in. Hello, everyone. Hope everything is well. That may just be where you start, by choosing new behaviors. And understanding also, what's the emotion that's connected to that when you start to engage in this new behavior? What are the thoughts that are coming up for you? And then, there's a social at the end of the month and you never go to the social, but this time you decide, all right, I'm going to go for an hour. I'm not staying the whole time, but I'll go for an hour and I'm going to make sure I have a conversation with one of my colleagues who I never really talk to. And then the work relationships start to change over time by behaving differently. And like, oh, I didn't have to become best friends with my colleagues, but it is good because I spend at least 8 hours a day, 5 days a week,
True.
with these people, that I have some type of relationship with them. And they find that work gets a little easier because it's easier for them to pick up the phone and call, to the other team and say, hey, listen, I'm having a difficult time with this task. And they're like, oh, no problem. Because they had this great conversation with you. Not that they wouldn't help you otherwise, but you may feel more comfortable because of this new work relationship.
Yeah.
You don't have to go, spend time with them and become, a part of their family, but you behave differently in the workplace and now the relationships are improving, right?
Yeah.
So I ask people, what's not working? And they may say, and then we ask, what can they do differently? Right? In some cases, they may have to put up more boundaries because everyone comes to their desk and they're not getting their work done. And so we say, okay, what do we need to put in place to ensure that doesn't happen? Do we set up your calendar differently? Okay, we make sure that people know you're out of office. And because it's out of office, remind them, hi, just check my calendar. It says I'm out of office from this time to this time, but I'm back later to talk. And then they start to, you making these changes. You might feel really terrible about it and very anxious, connected to an emotion at first because you've always been the go-to person, but it's no longer helpful, right? And so we just kind of think about what's not working and what's the change we want to make,
Okay. That's that's a really good answer, to be honest, because I believe how you show up in the world actually determines what you receive. Sometimes it's not true, but majority of the time it's true. If something is not working, what can you change to
Yeah.
actually? How can you change your attitude towards the world? Or what in the workplace or in life in general? To see how you can actually get a better response from on the
Mm,
outsiders. Yeah, but because of time, so I'm going to ask you now. You are so focused on organizations now and are helping them to actually create this awareness driven lifestyle within their workplace. So, assuming you are given the opportunity, not just at in those organizations now, but at the global level to influence policies to drive awareness driven lifestyle at the global level
mm-hmm,
now. All right.
mm-hmm.
How would you
Yes.
encourage this to be imbibed into the workplace at the global level, not just um in your vicinity or in your country where you are now, but at global level to be actually embraced as part of the work culture?
Yeah, I love this. Thank you. So awareness driven lifestyle for me is very much so for the individual, especially for them within the workplace, right? Helping them to determine what it is that they need when it comes to, what they're doing at work and the other areas of their life that are important. And eventually then we can have awareness driven companies. But let me say this is that my real core for the company is psychological health and safety in the workplace. What I have found is a lot of companies have done an excellent job at checking the boxes on mental health and mental health trainings and having employee assistant programs within the workplace, right? But they really haven't allowed this to truly become a part of the organizational culture because the environment isn't psychologically healthy or safe. And that isn't just about our mental health, right? It is actually deeper than that. It is about creating a space that employees can show up and know that they are supported and they're valued. And so it's things like if I make a mistake, I know I can go to my manager and have a conversation and not try to feel like I just have to clean this whole thing up and then make it worse. They know they can admit this mistake and their manager will support them, right?
Yeah,
It's also being able to have like really difficult conversations within the workplace. Hi, this process isn't working well. How can we improve this? And the team being able to kind of co-create solutions, right? Not burning people out because we're going in circles and they're coming up with solutions and you're saying no, we're not doing that. And so when this person now tries to apply for a new role, it's being held against them because there's somebody that speaks up when things aren't working, right?
yeah,
It's about being able to get feedback. I talked about feedback earlier. Being able to get feedback from your managers that feels comfortable because they're helping you to grow and develop, and that you might be able to give your manager some feedback to help them because they may not realize the impact of their actions on you, and it's not held against you because we're all genuinely trying to grow this company, right? People say that, you know, employees, they do not leave uh, bad companies, they leave bad managers, right? Usually they love their role, they love what they do, they love their pay, but their manager is awful to them, and it's not a psychologically safe environment for them to be in. Right?
yeah.
It's one where there are trusting relationships. And so when I think about the global level, I don't mind pushing back on people. And I've had people say that if there's one thing that she'll do is she'll tell this team it's not working. But safely, right? So that we can start to understand, well, why is this manager responding this way? We found that empathy within the workplace is a major change agent, right? How can you have some empathy for your employees? Times have changed. And if you're operating the way of, well, just come to work and do what you have to do and go home, you're going to lose good people. Not
True.
everyone's staying for the paycheck. They would say, okay, I don't need this. And then now you have this really high turnover. You're spending more money trying to continue to recruit people. And at some point, you have to acknowledge that you're the problem.
Yeah,
It may not be, what's happening here. It might be you're the problem. The workload is too much. It's unrealistic. It's not allowing for productivity. Your
yeah,
deadlines are unrealistic, right?
yeah,
I'm very big when I'm working with people one on one who have they're part of organizational cultures. And, we know certain cultures, like different firms and stuff like that, no matter where you are in the world, well, you're meant to stay until midnight and respond to emails at 3 a.m. Then the partner responds, or different things like that. And I'm like, well, who said that? And they're like, no, it's just standard. I'm like, it's not standard. And I don't think that you're going to lose your job if we start to think about what is realistic within your awareness driven lifestyle as an individual. And to date, there is absolutely no one that I have worked with to help them to rearrange their deadlines and increase their productivity that has lost their job. Not one. And I
Interesting.
do this all the time because it's how you communicate, and ensuring, one, I have to make sure you're a good worker. So I kind of grill you first. Are you good at this? Do you know what you're doing? Are you, what's really happening? And then helping them, even if I need to, right? Well, how are we going to develop your skills so that you can be the right person to go and have this conversation? And so after that, they have been back to managers and said, listen, is there any way that we can move this deadline, because I need to achieve this and I want to ensure I get this done and have sufficient time and do this? And not one manager has had a problem with that. Not one.
Okay.
So I just think it's how you do it, right? And I'm really big on helping people to use I statements and what does that look like, right? But you have to show up as a good employee. You have to show up as your authentic professional self
Yeah.
when you do that. And I get smiles. It's like, I've not been doing this for 5 years. I'm like, well, some people are not lasting that long, but for the last 6 months. And I'm like, why not? Like, it's okay. Let's just teach you how to communicate. People don't know how to communicate, right? And so I help them to learn how to communicate effectively with managers, and they're happier, which means that their mental well-being is in a better place, right? And now I can confirm that they're in a psychologically healthy and safe environment, and the culture is shifting. And in some cases, some managers have come back and been like, yeah, that's not a problem. Listen, how do we continue to develop your skills? And
Yeah.
send them on new trainings to help them to become better. And also, we all have different education backgrounds, right? And so in some cases, some employees do not know how to do a certain task, and they don't feel safe to say, I have no idea how to do this. And I've helped people to go back and say, let's get you the help. You have all these other strengths. Maybe this company can help you in this area, but we do it like, this is a really quick form, but we do it strategically, and they are getting these trainings paid for because they have offer so much other value. The company's like, well, let's just help you do better. And that's, then we can keep you, you know? So I am really big on the, psychological health and safety, really training managers, but also helping employees that to, one, live in awareness driven lifestyles, to also understand what is it that they want, need, and deserve, and how are they showing up, and helping them to change the way that they're showing up to serve them well.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, so on an international level, I don't think companies are getting this right. I just want to make sure that they are very clear. I am talking to people who would say, yeah, my company's great with mental health. I did this training and I know how to do this. And we did emotional intelligence and this and this. And then you ask them if they can do some of these things that I just talked about. And they're like, oh, they offer mental health days. I'm like, that's not the answer. No. Offering a mental health day is not the answer to the real issue at hand. The issue at hand is the organizational culture that is not psychologically healthy or safe, that we deserve to shift in 2024 to improve productivity, to reduce the turnover, to improve the ROI. You'll make more money if you make these mindset shifts as an organization.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah, so that's me.
yeah, I think it's very very is a good thing you're doing actually, and if it can be embraced at the global level, I think it will be a good thing. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
needs to live an awareness driven life, or have an awareness driven lifestyle, because it actually helps you to be your authentic self. And I
For
think
sure.
when we are mentally safe and authentic, we are happier. We do better work. That's what I believe. We
Yes.
produce better stuff because we are ourselves. We are not scared of
Mm-hmm.
anybody shutting us down, or putting us like triggering our trauma or whatever. Every
Yeah,
At least I think everybody will be happier that way. But
I agree.
Anyway, thank you so much, Jenna, for the
Hold
time
on, just
today.
before you go,
Yeah.
I will on the international level. So I have a program that is opening up October 1st, and it's
Okay.
psychologically healthy and safe environments and helping people to do this. No matter where you are in the world,
Okay.
you'll be able to have access to my webinars. As well as all the resources that I put together. I don't like to send a lot of emails, but it'll be very clear for October tasks, November, and December to help people to implement psychologically healthy and safe environments. And even if your organization isn't prepared to do it, it can help you to make sure that you are psychologically healthy and safe in your workplace. So please stay tuned for that. It will be out shortly. I'm not sure exactly when the podcast will be out, but it will be out starting October 1st. And you can go to mayvera.com and you'll be able to register and you'll have access to this. I also have free webinars that I'm offering each and every month. They're 45-minute sessions. So last month we did self-awareness in the workplace. For July, it's empathy within the workplace. And so you're welcome to come and take those free resources because I stand by this. We have to make this change for the well-being of everyone moving forward. And so I'm definitely encouraging people to please come out for that. The full program will be in October.
Okay. Thank you so much. So everybody, please visit mayvera.com. So if you want to catch Jenna, and to see what she's about and what her services are all about. But what if they want to follow you on any social media platform?
Yeah, for sure. So I am currently Mayvera Wellness on all social media. My Instagram, my LinkedIn is very active as well. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, it is Dr. Jana, Jana, Outerbridge, Outerbridge. I am there and I'm sharing this information to be able to help people to also do their own reprogramming of like, am I in a psychologically healthy and safe environment? So they can really take this back to their orgs and make these changes. So please connect with me, send me a message. I'd be happy to talk. And like I said, I'm offering a lot of virtual work, so webinars, one-to-one work as well, so I can help support you within that. So please visit me on all social media at Mayvera, Mayvera.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jenna. I really,
All right.
I really, really appreciate what you're doing. I think mental health is really, really key to 'cause if your mental health is okay, your physical health will be fine, and your social life will be fine as well. That's what I believe because they all come together. Thank you so much
Yes.
for your time today.
Thank you. Have a
Yeah,
good one.
I hope you had a good one then.
Yes, this was awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, no worries.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.